So, we meet again. Hey, what's up guys? JQ back with Tech Creation, where I use technology for recreation. So, I'm not gonna lie, walking around with the iPhone definitely gives you this sense of entitlement and fitting in that all of a sudden I've had this urge to go to Starbucks lately. Nah, but in all seriousness, people do respond to you a little bit faster once they see that blue bubble from iMessage. And the iPhone is definitely a status symbol for sure. And I know that that's really sad, but hey, I mean, that's how Apple chose to brand themselves, so it is what it is. So it seems like every year for me, I go through the same cycle: Galaxy device, Pixel phone, iPhone, then rinse and repeat. And using all three phones in rotation does have its benefits because you get to know yourself a little bit better as a smartphone user. So I've made several videos in the past talking about all of the nuances I hated about iOS and vice versa on how it was superior to Android. So I've played both sides of the fence already. Now each time I revisit the iPhone experience, I'm purposely looking for something to complain about, but only if there's something to complain about. And thanks to iOS 12, I kind of have to keep my mouth shut. So Apple pretty much fixed everything that I complained about since day one, starting with those group notifications. Now, they might be a few years late with this, but I think they did such a good job with it. Notifications of the same kind are now stacked together to expand or collapse with a single tap. And I like the visual separation of each individual notification. It just looks so much better in my opinion. It's a major improvement to the hell that us Android users had to deal with when switching over to an iPhone. Now, I don't know about you guys, but iOS 12 brings another small improvement that happens to be a big deal for me. And that is the support for password autofill by third-party apps. That means password managers like LastPass, for example, can now fully plug in credentials into empty fields just the same way that I've been able to do it on Android for the past few years. Now, prior to iOS 12, LastPass integration was very limited, leaving you for the most part having to copy and paste credentials between the password manager and the apps, which became a headache after a while. And the only real solid alternative was Apple's very own keychain feature, which as a longtime LastPass subscriber, I didn't want to commit to a one platform solution. And what makes this so much better is authenticating with Face ID instead of my fingerprint. Face ID is unmatched when it comes to smartphone authentication. And I'm reminded of this every single time I use it. Just the effortlessness of signing into apps is unrivaled, and that alone just makes me want to keep using this phone. Now sure, on the Android side of things, most apps do support fingerprint authentication, and this might sound petty, but that actually is a little more work. Having to change up your grip and switch it up depending on where the fingerprint reader is at, and it may or may not scan on the first try. With Face ID, it works flawless every single time. And not to mention, pretty much every single iOS app I have installed supports Face ID. Now to put that into perspective, Samsung's Iris scanner on the Note 9 and previous Galaxy devices has been out for about 2 years, and I can't name a single third-party app off the top of my head that supports that. So you gotta give props to Apple for making sure that their latest and greatest technology is gonna be used by the consumer. That alone should tell you that Apple takes consistency when it comes to the experience of using an iPhone very seriously, and that is something that I am and will always be a fan of. So in my opinion, there goes another thing that you can check off that iPhones just do better. Now, continuing on the glory of iOS 12, if you guys been following me for a while, I'm pretty deep into the smart home game, so naturally, an app like Shortcuts is gonna excite me. So Shortcuts is similar to routines like we get on the Alexa app and the Google Home app, but it's also much more than that. So this app lets you create workflows that you can attach a custom Siri phrase to, so that when it's triggered, it runs a series of operations, and these can include actions from your calendar, your contacts, messaging, location, your file storage, as well as scripting with system commands, which is pretty much like programming, which could get really complex, so I personally just choose to stay away from it. Now, some of the more simpler examples this is capable of is this shortcut that I made for when I tell Siri I want food, it'll go ahead and open up the Grubhub app so I can order my meals. Now, another example is instead of me using HomeKit to set up my smart home and my smart lights, thanks to Shortcuts integration with apps like Philips Hue, I can just create a bedtime shortcut, so when I say I'm going to bed, I can have my bedroom ceiling turn off, and that takes care of that. Now this is where shortcuts comes in handy for me big time. So we all know that Siri falls behind the competition when it comes to other virtual assistants. So for example, Siri has no support for my Logitech Harmony Elite system, but now thanks to the Shortcuts app, we can now make that possible by redirecting Siri over to the Google Assistant app for iOS with just one command. So your recent commands from the Google Assistant app will periodically appear under the Siri suggestions inside the Shortcuts app. And so since I already have my Harmony completely configured on the Google side of things, it's just a matter of creating a shortcut with my preferred Google Assistant command, attaching my custom Siri phrase. So now when the shortcut is triggered, Siri will just alley-oop over to the Google Assistant, and that takes care of that. Now sure, it does take an extra 2 seconds to reroute, but that's way better than nothing. Now that, my friends, is a third reason why I really have no incentive to really bash iOS anymore, as fun as it is to do. Now I will say though, Shortcuts doesn't come without its shortcomings. So for instance, the iPhone does have to be unlocked for certain shortcuts to run, which kind of sucks because it doesn't give me that hands-free virtual assistant experience that I would like. So it's not perfect, but is that a deal breaker? Not necessarily. Now a few honorable mentions of coming back to the iPhone and its experience and just trusting it as my main smartphone is iOS widgets. iOS widgets just work so much better in my opinion, especially the smart home related ones. Widgets in general are just overall cleaner, more dynamic, and they just work more consistently than what I've experienced in Android. The battery life on the iPhone XS Max has been great, especially for a screen this size. It definitely gave me Galaxy Note 9 vibes, and iOS's reachability feature really makes using a phone of this screen size a lot easier than what some of the other competitors have tried to do. It's just such a simple, easy to do gesture. Swipe keyboards like Gboard and SwiftKey, although it's nothing new, it's just still so convenient till this day to be using on iOS. The camera is great. It's not on the Pixels level, but it's still a great camera. It takes much better selfies than the Galaxy Note 9's camera, that's for sure. And it's just a smooth, solid operating system that closely resembles the Android experience. And I kid you not when I say this, the other day when I was switching between Google apps on this phone with the gestures, my peripherals caught sight of that notch, and for about 3 seconds I thought I was using the Google Pixel, and then I kind of snapped out of it and realized I was using iOS. So that alone says a lot to how far iPhones and iOS has come. Now I'll close with this statement. As a longtime diehard Android user, the rebel nature in me wants to complain about this phone. Like I really do, but I really can't. You know, I would really be reaching to say something negative about my time using the iPhone XS Max. And that's just facts. I'm just being honest, guys. I really like the direction that Apple is going, and they've really added a lot more character to the iPhone over the past few years. And it's crazy to think that at one point, having this kind of control on an iPhone was so far-fetched that it was a joke. Now, sure, this phone may not have the best screen or the best camera, but that doesn't mean it's trash. It's still really good. Now, the only legitimate complaint I have is still taking screenshots by accident while trying to increase the volume. That still gets annoying from time to time, but it's not a deal breaker, it's just a little bit annoying. So as of the end of this video, I'm gonna be team iPhone for a little while I reevaluate some things in my life. How do you guys feel about the current state of the iPhone and how much it's caught up to Android? I want you guys to let me know down below in the comments section. I wanna see where your heads are at. Let's have a discussion, a clean discussion at that. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and show me some love by pressing that like button. And if this is your first time on the channel, and if you're new, make sure you subscribe and turn on the alerts notification so you don't miss out on some more incredible tech videos. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. The Apple Watch is up next. Peace out.